quo, saying multiple times, quote, everyone was in the loop. It was no secret, he said, that the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Vice President Mike Pence, among others, that they all knew what the president wanted in exchange for a White House visit, and ultimately why nearly $400 million in U.S. aid was being held from Ukraine. Tonight, Republicans firing back, asking Sondland if President Trump ever personally told him that's why the money was being withheld. Also, the other news tonight, the bombshell headline from Buckingham Palace. Prince Andrew stepping back from his official public duties after what many called a disastrous interview about Jeffrey Epstein. Federal agents arresting 2 former police officers in this country linked to a deadly botched raid. A couple killed, several officers wounded. The new storm tonight across several states from California to Michigan. And when it hits the Northeast, Rob Marciano timing it out. The unfolding scandal rocking Syracuse University, the FBI now involved tonight. A professor reporting a new incident just today amid a series of threatening racist and anti-Semitic messages. The wild police chase at the airport, a young passenger jumping from a plane onto the tarmac, then onto the roof of a terminal, jumping, trying to escape. And the new promise to American workers tonight from Apple's CEO. We are one-on-one with Tim Cook, the new billion-dollar project here in the U.S., and the promise of thousands of new jobs.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. It is great to have you with us here on a Wednesday night, and we begin tonight with the most pivotal witness yet in the impeachment investigation, who today said there was a quid pro quo and that many in the Trump administration knew about it. Republicans tonight firing back. The ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, a Trump megadonor handpicked by the president, today testifying on live television there was that quid pro quo, pressure on Ukraine to open investigations into the president's political opponents in order to get an official White House visit. Sondland saying he believed that's why the $400 million in U.S. military aid was being withheld too. Sondland also saying that he was not part of a rogue operation, that, quote, everyone was in the loop, including Secretary of State Pompeo, and saying he talked to Vice President Pence as well, and providing an email he sent to the Secretary of State signaling that Ukraine was ready to act on the issues important to President Trump. Republicans striking back tonight, asking, did the president ever directly tell Sondland why he was withholding the U.S. aid? Sondland answering, no. ABC's Mary Bruce leads us off tonight from the Hill.
Today on Capitol Hill, a true Washington blockbuster.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Gordon Sondland, President Trump's hand-picked point person in Ukraine, defying the president, telling the nation there was a quid pro quo on order from the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, acting at the direction of the president.
We did not want to work with Mr. Giuliani. We followed the president's orders.
Sondland said the Ukrainian president would only get a coveted meeting at the White House if he agreed to announce an investigation into the president's political rivals.
I know that members of this committee frequently frame these complicated issues in the form of a simple question. Was there a quid pro quo? As I testified previously, with regard to the requested White House call and the White House meeting, the answer is yes.
And it wasn't just the White House visit at stake. The president was withholding nearly $400 million in military aid.
It became your clear understanding that the military assistance was also being withheld pending Zelensky announcing these investigations, correct?
That was my presumption, my personal presumption based on the facts at the time. Nothing was moving.
But Sondland acknowledges the president never told him directly.
I don't recall President Trump ever talking to me about any security assistance, ever.
Is this kind of a 2 + 2 = 4 conclusion that you reached?
Pretty much.
Is the only logical conclusion to you that, given all of these factors, that the aid was also a part of this quid pro quo?
Yep.
Republicans pounced.
So no one told you, not just the president. Giuliani didn't tell you, Mulvaney didn't tell you, nobody, Pompeo didn't tell you, nobody else on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying aid to these investigations. Is that correct?
I think I already testified.
No, answer the question. No one on this planet told you that President Trump was tying aid to investigations. Yes or no?
Yes.
So, you really have no testimony today that ties President Trump to a scheme to withhold aid from Ukraine in exchange for these investigations?
Other than my own presumption.
Which is nothing.
Chairman Schiff pushing back.
Now, my colleagues seem to think unless the president says the magic words, I hereby bribe the Ukrainians, that there's no evidence of bribery or other high crimes or misdemeanors.
But Ambassador Sondland also insisted he wasn't acting alone. He said everyone was in the loop, and he named names, declaring that everyone from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Vice President Mike Pence knew about the campaign to pressure Ukraine.
The suggestion that we were engaged in some irregular or rogue diplomacy is absolutely false. Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret.
Sondland says the State Department refused to let him look over his old emails, but he did bring one, an exchange with Pompeo, where Sondland said Ukraine was ready to move forward publicly and with confidence on those issues of importance to Trump, adding hopefully that will break the logjam.
And when you're talking here about breaking the logjam, you're talking about the logjam over the security assistance, correct?
I was talking logjam generically because nothing was moving.
But that included the security assistance, did it not?
Correct.
Sondland says he talked to the vice president, too.
Where you said that we really need to get these investigations from Ukraine in order to release the aid in the pre-meeting?
That's right.
And Vice President Pence just nodded?
He heard what I said.
Sondland testified that the most important thing to Trump was that Ukrainian President Zelensky publicly announce the investigations.
He had to announce the investigations. He didn't actually have to do them, as I understood it.
Sondland was in frequent contact with the president. He confirmed the testimony of another diplomat, David Holmes, who says he overheard a phone call between Sondland and Trump in a restaurant in Kiev.
You confirmed to President Trump that you were in Ukraine at the time and that President Zelensky, quote, loves your ass, unquote. Do you recall saying that?
Yeah, it sounds like something I would say. That's how President Trump and I communicate, a lot of four-letter words. In this case, three-letter.
Holmes then said that he heard President Trump ask, quote, is he, meaning Zelensky, going to do the investigation? To which you replied, he's going to do it. Do you recall that?
I probably said something to that effect, putting it in Trump speak, by saying he loves your ass, he'll do whatever you want.
But Republicans pointed to a different phone call, one Sondland described in a text message to the top American diplomat in Ukraine.
You testified that in your September 9th call with President Trump, the president said, quote, no quid pro quo. I want nothing. I want nothing. I want President Zelensky to do the right thing, do what he ran on, end quote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But that call came one day after the White House learned of the whistleblower's complaint, and just as Congress was launching its investigation.
Very busy day. Let's get right to Mary Bruce live on the Hill tonight. Mary with us all day long. And Mary, many were wondering as this was playing out today, would the president react in real time, as he did during last week's hearings, to what he was hearing from Ambassador Sondland today. Sondland actually saying that he spoke with President Trump about 20 times or so on the phone. He was able to call the president up. So what did the president say about Sondland today?
Well, David, even though Sondland donated $1 million to the president's inauguration, Trump today insisted that he does not know Sondland well and that he hasn't spoken to him much. And Trump even noted that Sondland previously supported another candidate. Now, Sondland was asked about the president trying to distance himself. His response, David, easy come, easy go.
All right, Mary Bruce leading us off. Mary, as you know, there was also something else the president zeroed in on, Ambassador Sondland's testimony today about a phone call he had with President Trump in September. Sondland asking the president, what do you want from Ukraine? The president's answer, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing, he said. The president coming before the cameras to say today that that phone call clears him, that, quote, it's all over. But tonight, Democrats point out the day he said, I want no quid pro quo, the president very likely already knew of the whistleblower's complaint and that the congressional investigations were about to break wide open. Here's John Carl.
Privately, White House officials acknowledged today's testimony was damaging to the president's case and described the president himself as tense as he watched. But when the president came before the cameras today, he declared victory.
I just noticed one thing, and I would say that means it's all over.
The president seized on one small sliver of Ambassador Gordon Sondland's testimony regarding a September phone call in which he says he asked President Trump what he wanted from Ukraine.
I just said, "What do you want from Ukraine?" And he said, "I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I just want Zelensky to do the right thing."
Reading from his own handwritten notes, the president delivered a reenactment of Sondland's testimony.
So he's going, "What do you want? What do you want? I hear all these theories. What do you want?" Right? And now, here's my response that he just gave. Ready? You have the cameras rolling? I want nothing. That's what I want from Ukraine. That's what I said. I want nothing. I said it twice.
But that September phone call between President Trump and Sondland came after the White House learned about the whistleblower complaint.
The timing is really interesting here. Let's get to our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, live at the White House as this was all playing out today. John, Republicans also seizing on that call, the president telling Sondland, "I want no quid pro quo." But as you just reported there, that call with Sondland came just as the White House knew of the whistleblowers reported that Congress had just started asking questions.
The timing is really important here. As we said, it's after the White House is officially informed about the whistleblower complaint. But, David, it's also several days after the Washington Post first reported that the president was trying to pressure Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden. So the bottom line is, when the president made that denial to Ambassador Sondland, the White House was fully aware that his actions were under scrutiny.
And, John, we were talking about this on the air today. Ambassador Sondland also said that many were in the loop, among them Secretary Pompeo on this and Vice President Pence. Any response from either of them tonight?
We have denials from both of them. The vice president said today that he has no recollection of Ambassador Sondland ever talking to him about any of this. And the spokesperson for Secretary of State Pompeo said that any suggestion that military aid was tied to political investigation, quote, is flat out false. That any suggestion that Sondland told him about that is flat out false.
John Karl and Mary, thanks to you both and our entire team today. And we hope you'll stay with ABC News. Live coverage of the impeachment hearings continues tomorrow morning. That begins at 9 a.m. Eastern once again. In the meantime, we move on tonight to the other major news this Wednesday. New fallout at this hour for Prince Andrew in Britain after his very controversial interview about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. The prince announcing he is now stepping away from his royal duties for the foreseeable future. Here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim tonight on the fallout.
Tonight, in what some are calling an unavoidable move, Prince Andrew taking a break from his royal duties after scrutiny over the interview about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
But you were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
The prince claiming he last visited Epstein to cut off contact with him, but stayed at his home for several days. That interview sparking intense backlash. Multiple sponsors ending their relationship with the royal. The prince acknowledging in a statement that association has become a, quote, major disruption to my family's work, writing, "Therefore, I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission. I continue to unequivocally regret my ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein." In that interview, Prince Andrew categorically denying any sexual contact with an underage accuser.
I am not one to, as it were, hug, and public displays of affection are not something that I do.
But several British outlets publishing pictures like these of the prince seeming to contradict his comments that he was not a partier. The 59-year-old maintains that despite multiple visits to several of Epstein's homes, he never saw any indication of unlawful conduct involving underage girls.
And David, a member of the royal family stepping aside from their official role due to controversy is unprecedented in the modern era. Since Prince Andrew is no longer working for the palace, he will no longer receive public funds. He does, however, still have access to the Queen's private funds if she so chooses, David.
Yeah, but as you said, an unprecedented move. All right, Eva, thank you. To other news, and two former Houston police officers are under arrest tonight for an alleged drug raid that left 2 people dead and 5 officers injured. Former officers Gerald Goins and Steve Brandt now facing federal charges, including falsifying records. Search warrants claim the occupants of a home were selling heroin. The 2 people who lived there were killed in the raid. There was no heroin found. And the FBI joining the investigation tonight at Syracuse University into a disturbing surge in hate crimes. Authorities say in one case, hate-filled writings were alleged